About time. Landlords are suing the federal government over losses of rental income due to the coronavirus pandemic and the eviction moratoriums. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. I've said in many of my videos that I believe that landlords should sue the federal government for loss in rental income. And guess what? They finally are. And I have an article just about that right here. But before I get into it, go ahead, hit that like and subscribe button. Maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you want to see on this channel. I'm going to work to keep bringing you articles about the eviction moratorium and other news that's of interest to landlords. So, this article comes from therealdeal.com and it says, landlords sue federal government over rental losses during CDC eviction ban. Yeah. Every landlord who lost anything, if they were unable to get any sort of rental assistance because maybe their tenant wasn't cooperating or maybe their tenant didn't even qualify for rental assistance, yet they were protected by the eviction ban from getting rid of those tenants, well, those landlords should be able to sue the federal government and get justly compensated because they are not under any obligation to be providers. They don't have to provide housing to the poor, and they shouldn't be doing the government's job for them by doing those things. So yeah, I do believe that landlords should sue the federal government, and I'm hoping that this is a class action case so that landlords throughout the entire country can join in, and hopefully they will win. In 3 days, the federal ban on evictions is set to expire, allowing landlords in most states to take non-paying tenants to court. But property owners say they deserve more than the freedom to join a backlog docket. They want money. The National Apartment Association, a landlord group, filed a lawsuit in federal claims court Tuesday demanding that the federal government compensate housing providers who have suffered severe economic losses during the eviction moratorium imposed by the CDC since September. Yeah, just being able to get rid of those tenants, that's not enough, okay? We deserve compensation, okay? The whole thing with the eviction moratorium is that it was created by the federal government. They put a process into place that prevented landlords from being able to remove tenants who weren't paying them. So then they had to take on and pay all their bills and everything without being compensated. They had to provide a service without being compensated according to the government, according to the federal government. And I know that they say, oh, well, we provided rental assistance. The rental assistance doesn't even cover all of the losses. But even if it did, if you really look at things, okay, I think they said they covered up to 12 months rent plus an additional 3 months, right? So 15. Well, the eviction moratorium has been going on longer than 15 months. So there's billions of dollars in compensation that landlords will never get. On top of that, there are so many tenants who were protected by the eviction moratorium who didn't qualify because they either made too much money or didn't actually suffer enough of a loss or whatever. So now those landlords are just out that money? No, the federal government created this, and they need to pay. And I believe they should be forced to pay through this lawsuit. So let's see what else this article says. The complaint estimates that landlords are grappling with $26.6 billion in debt that will not be covered by the $50 billion in federal rental assistance funds, a mere 6.5% of which has been distributed as of last week, and argues that the CDC eviction ban violated the constitutional rights of landlords. Amen. The suit alleges the moratorium infringed upon housing providers' right to access the courts, freedom to enter into contracts without government interference, and the right to demand compensation when property is seized through government action. Yeah, that describes it right there. I do believe that, basically these properties were seized through government action when they told the landlords that, hey, you can't evict these people, okay? And, this article, it's really describing exactly what I've thought and what I've been trying to convey in multiple videos. John McDermott, one of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs on the case, said the Supreme Court case Cedar Point Nursery versus Hasid decided last month, sets a precedent for the NAA filing. The judge in that case ruled that physical entry onto a property, in this instance for a few hours, was a physical taking for which owners must be compensated. NAA's suit aims to apply that ruling to the eviction ban. What happens if somebody's on your property for months, says Jay Martin, executive director of the Community Housing Improvement Program, an organization representing New York City property owners. If government is instituting the policy which allows someone to stay without paying, then government accepts the responsibility of paying on behalf of the tenant. Yeah, why not? Why can't the government just come with that money out of pocket? That's why I said a long time ago that the whole rental assistance program was completely screwed up. Instead of paying the landlords directly just by the landlord filing a claim, they wanted the tenant to fill out all this paperwork. They wanted the landlord to fill out all this paperwork to make sure they were eligible. And then they got caught up in bureaucracy. Months on end later, a lot of landlords still weren't getting paid. And it should have just been, hey, they were just cutting checks straight to the landlord. The tenant shouldn't have even been involved, okay? Because the tenant, this isn't their money. They're not the ones who are losing anything. It's the landlord who's losing money. And a lot of people, when they talked about the whole situation, they didn't even talk about landlords. They acted like the landlords didn't exist. Like the tenants, they need this extra money. Like, no. The tenants get to stay in the property, but the landlords are the ones who actually need the money to be able to pay the bills so the tenants can stay in the property. God, I mean, the whole thing is just so frustrating, the whole situation. Property owners in states and cities with their own eviction bans, such as California, Illinois, and New York, cannot participate in NAA's suit. However, Martin said he would not be surprised if New York landlords filed a similar action in the event that the state's emergency rental assistance program proves insufficient in covering arrears. The program is one of the latest in the country to launch, and thus far has reportedly distributed a measly $117,000. There will definitely be owners who are not completely made whole, said Martin, and there is probably interest from the real estate industry to launch a lawsuit that would demand some sort of compensation for being forced to house people throughout the pandemic. Yeah, the government forced landlords to house people throughout the pandemic, forced people to pay other people's bills, forced them to pay for utilities in many cases, and that's not right, okay? The government didn't compensate everybody. They didn't even make it possible for some landlords to be compensated, and it just turned into a complete mess. So yeah, I hope this turns into like a class action lawsuit, and then landlords throughout the entire country can join in and hopefully get compensated as well, because this is something that needs to happen, okay?